Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jeff Blankenburg, and this is another episode of Alexa and Friends. Today, I have with me Nataki Edwards from our Alexa voice service organization here at Amazon. So, Nataki, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do as we start these conversations is ask a couple of silly questions. I haven't prepared you for these at all, and I hope that's okay. These will be very easy, but they're a fun way to get to know you a little bit. So the first question that I like to ask is around the world of superheroes. You may have seen some of the Marvel movies that have come out in the past 10 or 12 years. And I always like to ask people, if you could pick any one superpower for yourself, what would you pick?
My mind automatically went to Ant-Man and how small he can get.
Yeah.
I think I love the ability. I like this idea of being really small but really strong. So I think that's what I would do.
Yeah, the ability, so it gives you that kind of ability to like sneak around almost.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. Get really close up on people as they're talking and plotting so that I can save the world.
Ooh, I like that. And I like that you modified that by saying you're using it for good.
Yes, absolutely, Jeff.
Always interesting to think about the superpowers people pick, and a lot of times those can be used for evil too. Certainly this one could as well. Break into places or steal things, but it's good to hear that you have an altruistic view on your superpowers. I think that's good.
Yeah. What's yours?
Boy, you are actually the first person to ask me what my superpower would be, and I feel like I fall in line with a lot of the folks that have been on this show and answered the question, which is the ability to read minds, or to one guest, Mark Tucker, Mark Tucker offered that he wishes he could impose empathy on others. Right, the idea that like there are a lot of people that don't have a lot of empathy on their own, and being able to give them that view, that insight as to why they should be empathetic for something. I thought that one was interesting too, but I think reading minds would go a long way for me, just to understand what people are thinking and what their motivations are. I
have no desire to know what people are thinking about me.
Yeah, there's not necessarily about me.
Okay.
Like what their motivations are or why they're doing it. I was just in an interesting internal call, and you can see that people are jockeying and positioning, and there's some political movement that happens in all of these kinds of meetings. And I just want to get down to the base of like, why are we fighting over this? Or what is the real purpose behind this agreement? Anyway, but there was an interesting study done quite a while ago. So I have a degree in psychology. And as I early on, and when I was still focusing on that as my career, I read about this interesting study where they, instead of asking an open-ended question like I asked you, they made people pick between invisibility or flight. Those were the only two you could pick. And it was a very interesting study because what they found was there was a high correlation between people that chose invisibility and people that had a criminal history. And people that chose flight were often far more likely to be volunteers and active in their communities. And that wasn't a one-to-one. Obviously, there was exceptions on the side. But people that chose invisibility often were more likely to want to be sneaky, willing to get away with things. Very, very interesting study.
I feel like that's kind of close to my Ant-Man wanting to be really small.
Right. So my second one, this is I have to draw a scenario for you first.
Okay.
And I want you to imagine you're walking through a large, crowded metropolis like New York or Seattle or something, and you want to get to a restaurant that you're meeting some friends at, but it's a block away, and you either have to walk down and all the way around the block, and city blocks can be rather large, or you notice there's a nice, brightly lit, clean-looking alley that you could cut through, but it's not much wider than your body. But you could get through the alley. You can actually see the restaurant on the other end of the alley. And so you decide you're going to cut through this alley, and as you get about halfway down, you find that at the end you're heading towards, that a giant horse-sized duck appears. He comes around the corner, and he looks a little aggressive, but he's standing blocking the end that you were heading towards. So you have a giant horse-sized duck. Like any smart human would, you turn around and say, no, thank you. I'm going to go the other way. You find that end has been closed in by 100 duck-sized horses. So very, very small horses, but there's 100 of them. My question for you, and I'd love your reasoning, is you are now trapped in this alley and you need to get out. Which direction do you choose to go and why? Knowing you probably have a little bit of a fight or a scuffle in some way.
I saw a meme like this on on Twitter. Okay, so it's the duck, horse-sized duck, one horse-sized duck,
Yes.
or 100 little ducks, right?
Little horses.
Little horses?
Yeah,
Oh, I would totally just run through the 100 duck-like horses.
All
Yeah.
right. So you just feel like
I'm
you're
not
just
scared
running.
of ducks. Like ducks are not. I'm not scared of something the size of a duck. I'd kick them. I just like barrel through.
I love it. Yeah, you can push and shove, and I mean, horses can bite. They can be mean, but I'm with you.
They can be very, very, very mean. Absolutely, but which is why I would not tangle with a horse-sized duck. Honestly, I think I would laugh so hard as I saw that. But yeah, the 100 little ones, I would go for that.
Nice.
100 is a lot.
I'm kind of the opposite with you. I feel like, I'm with you in that I think the giant duck would be ridiculous. And it would certainly make me laugh, at least for a moment. But I feel like there's a large part of me that would want to find a way to befriend and ride that giant duck, right? That
was my initial instinct too. Like I could probably hop on the duck's back and ride it, but I can't do that with a horse. So I don't think I would do it with a duck.
Fair. All right. Well, thank you for humoring me with my silly questions. The first serious question I'd like to ask you, and this is one that I ask of all of my guests, is I want your origin story. Speaking of superheroes, I want to know where you came from, maybe where you went to school. What were the jobs or the turning points in your career that kind of steered you to where you are today? And this is usually, like the 5 to 7 minutes you'd share with a recruiter or a friend. I'd love to hear your story.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually graduated from an HBCU, so a historically Black college and university. I went to Hampton University in Virginia, and I became a buyer for Bloomingdale's right out of college. And I thought that I love fashion and clothes.
Is that your degree?
So, no, my degree is in communications, but and Bloomingdale's actually doesn't even hire buyers who have degrees in fashion. They're looking for, psychology majors and communication majors and other things. But I thought, I'm going to get to shop all day. A buyer for fashion for Bloomingdale's, this is going to be fun. It is not like that. It is a very financial and operational job. But it gave me my first kind of taste into marketing, because as a buyer, you own the business. And so you get to understand customers and how their minds work and how you can get them into a store. And that really just spurred me on from there. I had multiple stints after Bloomingdale's. I went to American Express and then Yahoo and AOL and Estee Lauder. And eventually at Estee Lauder, I ran the e-commerce group for the Estee Lauder company. So not just that brand, but MAC, Clinique, Origins, and more. Estee Lauder companies owns a lot of beauty brands. But it was really, I see myself as a founding member of their e-commerce team, and really trying to understand like how e-commerce sits next to offline and how it can grow. Wow. And then I moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. and went to AOL, which was tough because AOL was on its downslide at the time. I would say that I would tell people all the time, this is like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And we were literally putting Band-Aids on the holes as this ship was sinking. And I was in the group that was still, out there giving discs. Like trying to get people.
Did you still have stacks and stacks of DVDs?
Still had them. I don't anymore. I should have kept some of them actually. But, eventually what AOL also offered me was the opportunity to run mobile marketing. And then I moved over to AARP. And, when you look back at your career, it's both intentional design and luck. So I went to AARP when the oldest Gen Xer was turning 50. So it just happened to be at this moment in time where this brand, who traditionally have been serving boomers, needed to start to look at another generation, a younger generation, and they didn't have the tools. And so I was brought in to really bring that business into, a digital focus. And I ran the digital strategy and marketing team. And over the years, built out, product marketing, analytics and insights, loyalty platforms, CRM. And so, I started with 4 people. By the time I left, I had 80 people in my division, and really very, very proud of how much the brand grew in the space of digital. And, over years, I see myself as a marketing technologist, right? So I am not highly technical. I am not a coder by any means, but I believe in the power of technology, and I believe in the power of technology to drive marketing. And what I love about marketing is I love the idea of getting butts in seats, right? I have always been a direct response marketer and focused on impact and performance. And after a while at AARP, I just thought, what's my next thing here? I've been here for 13 years. I just come off this huge launch with this loyalty platform that was doing so well. And it felt like a drop the mic moment, or as Jeff Bezos would say, it felt also a little bit like day 2 for me. And I didn't want day 2. So I had to figure out what was next. And one of the things I was responsible at AARP was voice. So I was the person responsible for the voice strategy. Wow. At AARP. We had launched voice skills. And so I had also been working with Amazon. I knew what Alexa was and what it was about.
Yeah.
And so when I got the call, I took it and I took the leap. And I always say to people and say, how did you know it was the right thing? And I said, when I was talking to Alexa and the team, my stomach hurt. Like I was a little nervous, like, can I do this? I don't know if I can do this, which also told me it was the right thing.
No, I love that. And, that's a common thread that I see through a lot of the conversations that I get to have here, is that with discomfort comes growth.
Yeah.
Right. That nervousness you feel, that's growth. And I think a lot of people actively try to avoid that.
Exactly.
I don't want to call her out. She doesn't watch this, so I'm not too worried about it. But my daughter is a good example of this. She's 17. She just got her very first job, and everything makes her a little nervous or a little worried, or can I say this to my boss, or I need to ask for a day off? How's all that kind of stuff? And like, she's just tied up inside, worried about how she's going to respond. And I was like, you're going to come out of this stronger, better, knowing like how you communicate at work and how you talk with your manager and stuff. It's a lot of good growth for her. But right now I watch her and it's just so painful because it's like, just ask for the day off, man. Like
I know. Right? And then, and at that age, everything seems so permanent. Yeah. And serious, and it's so not. She will figure out probably in the next 15 years, she'll realize that everybody's making it up as they go. Exactly. No one knows.
To keep it rolling. Yeah, I completely agree. So I'd love to dip in. You mentioned that I have a couple of things to unpack about AARP specifically. First of all, I am 5 years away from having to get that envelope in the mail.
I'm 4, my friend, right behind you. Well, they will find you.
I know they will. My wife's a little bit closer, so I'll see how her experience goes. But on top of that, it's interesting to me. I think it would be very interesting. First, what do you think the average age of an employee at AARP is?
Probably in their 40s. I would say AARP has a ton of Gen X employees as well as millennial employees. So I would say in their 45-ish, 46.
Got it. It finds it interesting to me that it's an entire organization dedicated to marketing and supporting people over 50. Mm-hmm. In my head, I guess I always thought a bunch of older people would work there, and
believe me, there are a bunch of older people working there. Absolutely.
Okay. 45 is the average. You've got plenty.
Yeah. I mean, they're leadership, of course, is older. So the AARP has a lot of older. It's older than the average organization by far.
It's hard for a 23-year-old to relate to what they're doing.
Exactly. Although I hired a bunch of 20-somethings, and I think what helped is because I was in digital. So yes, they were selling a product that was targeting an older customer, but the medium and the platform was something that they used every day and they could understand. So
cool. And then just quickly, I mean, you can spend as much time as you'd like on it, but you said you had built some voice experiences for AARP. Can you tell me a little bit about what those were?
Sure. So first we started with just like the flash briefing, of course. AARP has its own kind of new daily news service. But then we got into custom voice skills. The first one we did was around helping people vote, what the issues were that would matter to an older adult, and how should you find out where to vote, what the choices were, who the candidates are, and really trying to get people to actually vote. I mean, older adults tend to vote more anyway, and they're pretty highly informed, but understanding kind of the complexities of Social Security, that's what this voice skill did. And it was actually the first time. It was so interesting. Voice, when you are creating for voice, you have to bring it down to the smallest common denominator. Yeah. So you don't have the space and the time to use a lot of jargon, to be so superfluous in your language. You have to really narrow it down, even more so than when you build for mobile.
Oh yeah.
And at AARP, we had not done that before. So it was the first time that we had to distill our positions on things like, what did we think about Social Security, into something so small and digestible for customers to understand. I love that.
You probably didn't get to use the word superfluous, for sure.
No, we didn't.
All right. Excellent. So that experience brings you to an interview, to a conversation with Amazon. Did you reach out? Did you go to like Amazon.jobs and find it? Did someone reach out to you?
I did not. Someone reached out to me. So a recruiter reached out to me, and I was actually pretty far down the path with another job. So I was like days away from saying yes to a whole other position. And then I got this call from an Amazon recruiter, and I thought, I have to talk to the Amazon recruiter. Right. I mean, it's Amazon. But I really didn't think anything was going to come of it. But it moved so quickly, like within a week or two, I had the offer.
Wow. Well, for those that may not have the fortune of just being contacted, which is amazing, and I'll tell my quick story here in a moment as well. For any of you that are looking for opportunities, and maybe Amazon's a consideration, you can actually go to Amazon.jobs. There's tons and tons of opportunities there. But on top of that, if you're specifically looking for something at Alexa, Stacy is in the chat room, and she is there chatting with all of you. If you guys have any questions about how do I get started or what do you recommend, she's there to answer your questions as well. So please feel free to reach out to Stacy McKinnon there on the chat. All right, Nataki. So you come into the company, and what's your starting position? How long have you been here first? Let's ask that.
Like 95 days.
Awesome. I like new employees. They have fresh perspectives on things. That's good.
Yes.
And you work in the Alexa voice service organization. So tell me a little bit about your role today.
Yes. So I am the director of customer engagement in Alexa Voice Service Group. And my team is responsible for, well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Alexa Voice Service. So, we have a mission of really making Alexa available and delightful to customers everywhere they expect. And we do that by harnessing the capabilities of partners. So think about Alexa in your TV or Alexa in your coffee maker. But these aren't products built by Amazon. They're products built by third-party partners. My team in particular, the customer engagement team, we're trying to get people to have habitual usage and see value in those Alexa built-in experiences from third parties. And, it's an interesting challenge, because for some people, Alexa is not a part of the why buy. Like, you didn't buy this TV because it had a voice assistant. Right. You bought it because you wanted a new 4K TV. And so we have to somehow become relevant enough and familiar enough to the customers to break through to get them to set it up. So I have a setup and discovery team, and that's actually my team of developers and engineers. I have a consumer marketing team who's constantly looking at the full funnel and trying to drive awareness as well as usage and loyalty downstream. And then I have an engagement analytics and insights team who's crunching the data and looking at what's working, what's not, how do we, make sense of it and actually optimize.
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to work for both Microsoft and Amazon in my career. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is just how much data and how driven we are to focus on what works and what doesn't. It's just amazing to me to think about, not in a negative way, but just the way that problems are approached today. There is data. There's things that we can know about what devices are being used or how they're being used and the way that people are interacting with them, so that we can optimize around those experiences and make them better for customers. I just think it's not something that's always visible to the end consumer, right? To think about how much work and how much time is spent trying to understand in a way that isn't just calling thousands and thousands of people and asking them what they like and what they want, right? Trying to do it in a cleaner, more efficient way.
Trying to understand people's motivations.
Yeah.
Like, what are these jobs that you're trying to get done? Why are you using these utterances and having these dialogues versus others? I mean, it really does take a ton of really, really smart people to figure it out.
Yeah. So as we talk about AVS and all of these devices, how have you kind of seen the technology in this space evolve?
Yeah. I always think about the delightful moments that I've had with voice. And, the first time I had a conversation with Alexa, the first time I played a game with Alexa, I would say, but what has been really cool about the evolution is when it multimodal, like screens were introduced.
Yeah, like I've got here behind me.
There you go. You have that double sensory, multi-sensory experience. And from a marketing perspective, you get the opportunity to introduce content in multiple form factors. From a consumer perspective, you get to experience Alexa and voice in ways that you normally would with, computers or TVs, et cetera. And I just think that extension into multimodal has really opened the door to creating just products that we weren't originally thinking. At least, again, I go back to what I was thinking about with AARP and those custom voice skills that, I built many years ago. It was only thought of with voice, right? And so what would I have done with a multimodal screen?
That's very, very true. In fact, you probably were familiar with this, but we announced at Alexa Live with Verizon that they have a new AVS product coming out, a smart screen. I think those are the kinds of things when you start thinking about new digital applications, things that hang on the wall in your house but are interactive. I don't think that the initial vision for Alexa was that at all. It was ambient voice throughout my home and how can I talk to it? But there's so much benefit, so much value in being able to see things.
Yeah.
And it seems so obvious, right? I mean, we live on our cell phones, tablets, and computers. But
once anything gets developed, I'm always like, why didn't I think of that? That's so obvious.
Right. And I'm sure it was on some like North Star document somewhere that said, hey, eventually this is where we see it going, but we've got to prove this voice thing first. So speaking of voice, where do you kind of see the voice industry headed? What is the stuff that AVS is doing to kind of help shape that?
Yeah. One thing that we're doing that I think is so cool is this idea of having multiple voice assistants on one device, which I mean, it's not even something from a customer standpoint that you see as a pain point. I don't think people are sitting in their, kitchen saying, gosh, I wish I could ask Alexa something and then automatically switch to my bank and they just know, right? I don't think the customer has even fathomed what's possible.
Right.
But this idea of how you can have multiple voice assistants who do very different things working seamlessly together, that type of technology and experience, again, from a customer delight perspective, I think that is something I'm excited about. And I feel like I love the fact that Amazon is so committed to it because it is about customer choice. And I think it's just another example about our commitment to customer obsession. So, yeah.
I totally agree. And I actually had an experience earlier today that reminded me of this exact need, this exact function that we were talking about, which is multiple assistants doing different things depending on the context and the specialization that they have. I had a friend reach out to me today. He's a 5th grade elementary school teacher. But he's probably 52, I would guess. And he has a large collection of Star Wars memorabilia and toys and things like that. Now, he knows that I have gotten way back deep. We can unpack this for the next hour if you want. But way back deep into my childhood baseball card collection. And as a result, I've started collecting a lot of modern cards again. And it's been a fun hobby to have on the side, especially during COVID. But he reached out to me and he goes, hey, I don't know if you have the answer for this, but I'm looking for a way to sell a lot of my collection. I don't want to have it anymore, like kind of outgrown a lot of this stuff. Is there a place other than eBay that you would recommend I find this stuff for? And I was like, man, actually, I have a friend. He's been in documentaries. He's been in all sorts of stuff about Star Wars collectors. And he's got to be one of the top 10 Star Wars collectors on Earth, right? He's deep, deep, deep into it. And I said, what I should do is I should connect these two people. And it occurred to me that that's more or less exactly what we're talking about when we have assistance, is that he has a specialization and a knowledge that I don't have. So I'm going to hand off this conversation to him, and then my friend can go talk to him and kind of explore what the best way to move his merchandise is, right?
Yeah.
But that is, I think that I always like to draw things back when we talk about the technology of voice and ambient computing. I always love to draw it back to human examples. And that is a perfect human example of why we need multiple assistants, because there's no way one can have all the knowledge.
Exactly. You can't have all the knowledge.
But if I know that they have that knowledge, then I can make an easy handoff and you can continue on your way to whatever information you needed.
Even you just saying that, I mean, that's actually one of the biggest challenges for my team, to be quite honest, is just thinking about these hero use cases and how you can really bring the capabilities to life, right? It's more than just saying you can listen to music or you can make a phone call, right? Like that's not enough. And so constantly trying to figure out, how do we paint this picture across all of these segments and devices, et cetera. But yes, absolutely.
Very cool. All right. So you said you've been thinking about voice for a while, obviously your time at AARP and now the time that you've spent here these last 3 months. What has surprised you most about Alexa's role in voice?
I would say one thing is it's still tied a little bit to my time at AARP, and it's just how much Alexa can help people as they age. I just think, the idea that, especially in America, but in other countries too, I know Japan is also dealing with this as well. Longevity there's this longevity index and longevity economy that we're going through, right? This burst, and some people call it the silver tsunami, where we are just, a lot of boomers are aging, right? And they're living longer. We're all living longer. Even if we're not living healthier, we're living longer.
Sure.
Until COVID came, but forget COVID for a second, living longer. And then we don't have the caregivers that we will need to help take care of us, right? So there's just not going to be enough people to take care of all of the people who will need care. That's just an offshoot of this longevity index. And I think technology, specifically technology like Alexa, can actually play an outsized role. The ability to help caregivers, check up on loved ones and make sure that they're okay. The ability to give people who are receiving care independence so they can stay in their homes longer. People take it for granted that, most people don't want to leave their homes as they age. So all of the things that you can do that will allow someone to be independent, the drop-in feature, making sure the person has, if they haven't done their routine by a certain time, you're going to get a call. The son or daughter is going to get a call. Like that kind of those capabilities, I think it's really, really powerful. And it's something that, because this is going to be a a worldwide problem. We're all going to experience it. I think how voice can help with the aging population is a great opportunity.
No, I'm actually deep into this as well. I feel like we have a lot of good parallel stories. My grandmother on my dad's side is 99 years old. She's turning 100 in October, and she still lives. I mean, she's in an assisted living community, but she still lives independently in an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that she may need in an emergency are right there.
Right there, yeah.
But in general, she is living independently. She's living in an apartment. We actually put an Echo Show in her apartment recently, and now she can make video calls to us. We can call in and talk to her and drop in, like you said, just to make sure everything's okay if she doesn't respond or doesn't answer her cell phone or whatever. But those kinds of things have unlocked so much, right? Because it used to be like, I live 2 hours away, but my parents still live a half an hour away. And so it's like, do we want to drive a half an hour just to find everything's okay? This is a very convenient way to still be able to talk and interact and see each other in a really convenient
peace of mind.
Yeah.
So again, like when you, and again, from a delivering value to customers, if you like Maslow's hierarchy of needs or customers' hierarchy of needs, peace of mind is a huge one. And I've read somewhere, I saw something somewhere where it said having Alexa in your home for like an elderly person can be the difference between getting help in 10 minutes or waiting 10 hours.
Yeah.
So
the reason that she's in this apartment is because she had a fall and she broke her hip and didn't have a way to communicate, couldn't reach the phone that was up on the wall. And so it was almost 15 hours before. Yeah. Terrible story, right?
Terrible. I know. And we get these emails where people say, oh, my mom had a fall and she couldn't reach the phone, but then she remembered she could call via Alexa. And that, I love those. I love those. Totally
agree. All right. So your team is working on some awesome technology, obviously. What are some of the bigger challenges you guys are facing currently?
Well, I talked about the hero use cases and just kind of honing down on those. But I would also say we cross so many vectors, right? So when you think about building Alexa, integrating Alexa into third-party products, it's across multiple segments. It's, TV, home, connected home, tablets. There are many, many segments. There are many locales because we're international. And I would say one of our biggest challenges is focus. So the ability for us to stay really, really laser focused on the fact that we're the customer engagement team and we are trying to drive habitual usage and value. That's one challenge. And really it's because there's so many there's so many cool things that are coming out, but not everything is ready for full-fledged marketing. Sure. Right? Some things are not at MLP. Some things are still at MVP. Some things, and so there's a spectrum on the product maturity, and we are just getting smarter about when is it the right time to pull the levers from my team, right? And that's definitely a big challenge because there are so many cool products out there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this feels like a good time to talk about the different ways that third parties can actually integrate Alexa. And one of the things that I'd like to share with the audience that's watching here is a link to check out. You can go to alexa.design/built-in. Now this is the URL that you provided me earlier, Nataki. This just takes you to Amazon.com, and it's going to show you the huge list of products that are available that have AVS technology in them, right? This is stuff that has both built-in and works with Alexa stuff. And that's something I'd love for you to spend a little time talking about. Is what the difference?
Sure. The names of the ways you can integrate actually explain them really well. So the first is Alexa built-in. And just like it sounds, Alexa is built into the actual product, right? And so these products have Alexa functionality within them, where they can play music, they can check the weather, they can read the news, all of the things Alexa can do actually within the device. So think about, a pair of Sony headphones and you asking Alexa to turn up the music on those headphones. So that's Alexa built in. And those are the products that my team supports. Then you have Works with Alexa. And again, just like it sounds, this is where you have products where voice capabilities are enabled through another Alexa device. So you have an Echo Dot where you can control your Philips light bulbs. So you say to the Echo Dot, turn off my lights, and it's controlling the Philips light bulbs. The Philips light bulbs works with Alexa versus Alexa built in.
Got it. That's a great explanation. And you did all of that, with the exception of saying works with and built in. You did that entire description without saying the A word, which a lot of times I will get complaints on these kinds of shows because we say it 100 times, during the conversation. And you talked about dot, and then you talked about the utterances without using the word. That was.
Look, I've been training myself not to say it so much because I have so many devices around my house, so I'm constantly making her wake up. Before we started, I already started turning things off.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process. So I just redid this whole backdrop. And obviously that one is plugged in. Spinny McTurney is what I call that one. But I have one of most of the devices here on the shelf, and it runs much wider than the camera showing here. But I haven't. I'm drilling holes and like hiding all the power cords for all of it, and so it creates a ton of sawdust. And I haven't drilled all the rest of the holes yet. So that's my
amazing. I don't know what all those things are, but my 6-year-old would go crazy in there. It's like a toy store.
These toys here, these are made by a company called Funko. Actually, I have their name right there.
Yeah.
They're based in Seattle, and they make a figure for literally everything you can imagine. Every movie, every TV show, every musician, like it's crazy. And they've become quite popular. I mean, you and I are both old enough to remember Beanie Babies.
Oh yeah.
People equate them to that, but on a much larger scale. But yeah, I mean, just looking across in the room here, I have many more in front of me, sadly. I have a huge Star Wars collection, Marvel movies collection, and this is just a random smattering of interesting stuff here behind me. But yeah, they've become quite popular. Cool. Kind of cool. They started as a collection with me and my kids, and before I knew it, I had too many, and I was like, oh, I need to put some shelves up, and then it's just slowly grown from there.
You and your kids.
Oh yeah, definitely. My kids, like they have plenty in their room as well, but it's just one of those fun family things. The nice thing about them is they're really inexpensive. Most of them you can get for $7, right? They're not super expensive. So, anyway, we can talk about my embarrassing collections some other time. But okay, so we've talked about built-in and works with. So let's get back to you a little bit. I've had some guests on here that work on the Amazon Video teams and on the Amazon Music team. So, like, what are you listening to? What are you watching these days?
I talked about my 6-year-old. And her name is Marley. She is addicted to this show on Netflix right now called Brainchild. Oh, okay. And it is produced by Pharrell. And it's all about kind of like how our brains work. So why do we have nightmares? Does the 3-second rule really work? Can you drop something on the floor and eat it? Do kids have better memory than their parents? Like all these things. And, she loves it so much. And at first I would be like, I don't want to watch this show. And now I'm so into it. I hate when I get into her shows.
I was the same way with a few of my kids' shows. I mean, we had like Mythbusters when my kids were growing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which sounds similar, but there's a cartoon called Gravity Falls, which was on Disney.
Yeah.
Man, that is just a fantastic cartoon show. Like, it's great. And my kids always be like, Dad, can we watch it? I'm like, I guess if you guys want to, but
That's how I am. I am the same way. I'm like, if you must, okay. What really bugs me is when she's like, oh, I don't want to see this episode, Mommy. And I really want to see it.
You're saying that show is produced by Pharrell Williams?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. There must be like 7 of him. How is he doing?
I don't know.
You're not a lot that talented across that many different things.
It's such a good show. So I've been watching a lot of that. And I'm sure I'll watch other things, but that's the one thing that came to my mind when you asked.
What age is that targeted at?
It's probably a little older than her, to be quite honest. I think it's, 10-year-olds, 8 to 10-year-old, 8 and above.
I've got 2 teenagers, but they love science and like exploring questions and stuff like that. So that might be.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's a good recommendation. What's the big music playing through your devices these days?
Oh my gosh. I've been in a little bit of a nostalgic music mood lately. So, Prince's birthday was earlier this summer. So I've been playing a ton of Prince, Purple Rain.
Did you see they just released a new album from all of his collection? I haven't listened to it yet.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I will be. Huge Prince fan. We've been introducing our daughter to Michael Jackson's Thriller. So showed her the music video for it. And
that's a moment when he
did all of the dances to it, which I won't do here. I've also been listening to the Bee Gees.
That's great.
Last night I was listening to the Best of Queen. I don't know. Again, I'm in this nostalgic mood.
Yeah. So I'm the same way. I jump from genre to genre. The one thing that I can't and I'll listen to it, but I don't really get into is like older country. That's not really my jam. And like the really, really like hardcore rap stuff.
Me either.
It's again, I can listen to it, but it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I love lots of rap, but not the like hard stuff.
I'm not a hardcore rap person, but
but I just
90s R&B all day long.
Oh yeah.
I was telling someone, do you ever catch yourself going to the grocery store and listening to the music that they play at the grocery store?
It's not fair.
It's so good.
No, but you like even in an elevator, you'll be like, "Is that Def Leppard?" Like,
yeah, is that Taylor Dane? I mean,
yes.
Yeah. I'm definitely that person.
I saw an interesting interview. So I'm a big fan of like 90s alternative, like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all that stuff. That's when I grew up. And there was an interview with Dave Grohl, who's the lead man for Foo Fighters these days. And he said, if you go back and listen, he goes, I'm a terrible drummer. I steal and I copy from everybody, but I'm not an inventive drummer. And he was the drummer for Nirvana.
Yeah.
And so he goes, if you go back and listen to our first stuff, if you listen to any of the interesting drumming that I do in any of those songs, I stole it all from 70s disco. So I'm thinking back to like the Bee Gees, and he showed some examples, and like their famous song "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Like he has this really heavy drum intro. If you go, I think it's not the Bee Gees, but it's a band like that. And if you go back and listen to one of their songs, like it's the exact same drums, everything. He just picked it up and lifted it into an alternative song, and it was
no, that's not good, Dave. No, that I'm not surprised though. That music is so good. Yes,
it is. There's a lot of invention there that you didn't see in other stuff, right? It wasn't all just like most rock music was inspired by like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and that didn't that had a different angle to it.
Yeah, sure. Really cool.
We should start our own podcast where we just talk about music genres.
I was gonna say. And now I have all of these songs in my head from the Bee Gees playing in my head, so I have to purge it out.
All right, so let me get us back on track. I apologize. This has been fun. If we think about Alexa and devices, what does the future look like for you? What are the advancements that you see coming?
One thing that I do see coming, and it's necessary, is because so many people we just talked about how we have a device in almost every room, how these things all work together, especially as third-party products proliferate and grow. If you're going to have Alexa built into your TV and your coffee maker and your refrigerator, and you have your Echo Show, and, not just so that they don't interrupt each other, but how can they amplify each other? How can we actually build upon the capabilities, create a surround sound, if you will, or whatever it is, right? That without those things, you actually lose out. I think that is such an opportunity for us. And I definitely see that coming. I mean, it's at the point where voice is still pretty new. I mean, what is it, 6-7 years, right? Yeah. It's really new, but I mean, so many people, even if they're not using them every day. I remember when Echo Dots were, really popular, and the price had come down like years ago, and we bought one for every family member. One Christmas, it was like, you get a dot, and 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 we went around to everyone's house and set it up for them. it's just like these devices are everywhere. So how do you get them to work together? And I think that's a really big opportunity, and it's where we need to go so that it actually doesn't force the consumer to arbitrate and to make that decision, right? So we have to actually have advancements where they amplify and help each other.
This is a fantastic example. I was at CES. This was probably 2018 or 2019. Consumer electronics show, for anybody that hasn't heard of that. And I was there, and I was at it was the iRobot display, and they had Roomba vacuums rolling around. And we had one in our house, and I always thought it was useful. It's a great vacuum. It gets the job done. I don't have to do it myself. But what they were showing was the kinds of data that those things can generate. And they were showing they had a small setup that was like the first floor of a home, and they showed the data it was creating, and it could show you the layout of your house, right? Because it now knows what your house looks like because it's roamed the floors of your entire home. It then started to know, like, well, this is clearly a family room based on the shapes and like using machine learning to apply some of those things to it. And it made me really think about the ways that, because right now you have to manually tell all of your devices what room they're in, and then it's just a name. It doesn't have any real relevance.
Exactly.
And I thought, man, it seems to me if I have a device in my bedroom and I only use it early in the morning and late at night, that's a pretty clear indication that's probably a bedroom or a master bedroom or something like that. And then you have family room devices, you have televisions, and all. Like, you can start to get a feel just based on usage patterns and some other things. Like, well, no, this one is obviously a thing. And you could almost start to target, like, if you wanted to drive notifications to someone, you could make a best guess about what devices they'll be near and when, without doing anything, right? Just by paying attention to usage data and stuff like that.
Yeah. And even if you got it wrong, the cost wouldn't be so high, right? The consumer is not going to say, like, oh my gosh, why would they send that to me? But you could still learn a lot by doing those kinds of tests.
Totally agree. And so I think that there's going to be more and more of that. As we start to talk about this bigger, like, ambient computing picture, I think you're right. I want my Fire TV to be able to talk to my Sonos, to be able to talk to my everything. And I want them to know how and where I want to work in the way that I want to. Like, it should adapt to me, right? And I still think we're on that. If we divide the timeline in half, and we're on the half that's still like the humans are adjusting to the device.
Exactly.
We want to go the other way, where the devices are adjusting to the humans.
Yeah.
I think we're headed that way, but it does take time.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So I only have a couple of things left for you. Because there's actually been a lot of great questions in the chat about people wanting to know more about working on the team. And someone in the chat was a former employee of yours over at AARP. So you've got a following, which is great. But as we talk about your software development folks, what does your culture look like? What are the tools that you guys are using to build?
Yeah, we actually have a really collaborative development process, right? So it's not, in some organizations and some teams, you get a set of requirements, they hand it over to the engineers and off they go. And if the requirements aren't right, then you're kind of screwed. But this is not that, right? We typically start with the product managers, and they meet with the engineers to actually collaborate on what the technical approach should be, as well as what the requirements are going to be. So no one is just handing them something. And I think that gives them a greater sense of ownership. The other thing is that because my team is building across such a wide swath of segments and products and devices, sometimes their solutions are on device, sometimes it's a companion app. They have to use lots of other services that aren't just sitting with us. They get the opportunity to build in ways that it's not just, here I am, I'm building this one SDK every day, and that's all I do. They're not doing that. So if you're an engineer or a builder who likes diversity, then my team definitely helps. After that kind of first collaborative, conversation, the engineering team kind of finalizes the plans. They go through, here's what the design should be. They then review that with stakeholders, they get buy-in, and then they move on to implementation, testing, et cetera. And so what what the team also loves is that Amazon is providing tools. So there are custom tools that Amazon is providing for them to actually complete the software development cycle. And they don't have to both build and worry about the tools they need to stay on track with the development cycle. And so that's also a real benefit.
Cool. And just to pull the curtain back a little bit, like what is the tech stack? What do you guys build in? What is most of the technology you're using?
Yeah, so we host front-end applications and Java-based RESTful web services that deliver our user interfaces for people to guide them through, the setup and discovery. We leverage a bunch of AWS services as well, whether it's Lambda and CloudWatch and Redshift. And then there are a bunch of other, proprietary Amazon technology that we use. But yeah, it's really about the front end web applications are
the front end stuff. Is that like React and
yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. All right. So last question before we try to put a bow on all of this today. What kind of opportunities are available today on your team? What are the big needs you guys have?
Yeah, we're looking for innovative engineers. Like I said, because we have such a wide range of devices that we support, our engineers really have to be able to build in a modular way, and that's our approach, right? And so we want to be able to scale our infrastructure, and also because we have engineers are at the table with the business. So we're looking for people who both can be builders, but also can be a part of the business. Right now, we're going through 2022 planning, and I have a small set of team members who are helping me think through what 2022 planning should be. And I have 2 engineers who are sitting on that day-to-day team with me. And so it's that kind of, that's the team and that's the culture. And we're always looking for great developers and engineers. So definitely go to amazon.com/jobs to see what's available. I know that we actually have some open recs out there for some SDEs.
Awesome. Well, Stacy, I have to say, this has been a delightful conversation. I'm glad I got a chance. I said Stacy, I apologize. Nataki.
I know that I was thinking, are you looking at Stacy?
I had Stacy on my mind. I was just reading a comment of hers in the chat. I apologize. Nataki. This has been great, and I certainly learned a lot. I'm going to have to go add some Bee Gees to my playlist. That's for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Is there anything else you want to leave people with before we wrap things up here today?
No, try an Alexa built-in product. Nice. Until I got here, I had not tried it. I didn't even know. I was like, what? I didn't get a Samsung TV with Alexa built into it. Yeah, it's actually.
Did you one on your first day? They just walk in and they're like, here's your television.
There you go. I got everything. You get a TV. No, it was not that.
So honestly, I'll share this. I don't know if you've heard of the Tap Top. Is that a device you're familiar with?
No, I have not.
This was a Kickstarter device, but it has AVS Alexa built in. But it is a virtual board game tabletop device. And so it's a screen that's about the size of your monitor. I would say it's probably a 22-inch screen if I had to guess. But it handles like 40 individual touch points all at the same time. So people can be playing board games and all touching the screen at the same time. And it has a bunch of, like, my family loves board games. And so it has a bunch of board games that are built right in, and I guess they're starting a subscription service where you can get a huge library involved. Very, very cool. But it also has Alexa built in, which means I can play all of those cool multimodal games that have touch, like Jeopardy and all sorts of other stuff. You can just talk to the device, and it's a huge screen that does all of the AVS and APL multimodal stuff as well. It's super cool.
Look at you teaching me. I love it. That's really cool.
I think it's a pretty cool device. My only concern, if I'm offering concerns to people, is that the growth of the library, more games, hasn't gone the way that I thought it would. Yeah. I'm sure every company has their hiccups on stuff like that, but they will have more games. I'm pretty confident about that. But it's a pretty fun device if you like board games.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge and your history. This is useful for everyone, and it gives them a perspective that, like, there aren't just like set job paths. You've been all over the place. You've worked in makeup. You've worked all over the place. And I think that's a lovely story to share with other people.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. It's been so much fun being on here. So thanks for having me.
All right. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again very soon. We have office hours on Tuesdays, lots and lots of cool stuff to engage with. So we look forward to seeing all of you very soon. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.